Hello and welcome to And All Shall Be Well. My name is Megan Rohrer and I am your host. Today we're having a special conversation about wellness and art and the most amazingly interesting sculpture you're going to hear about in a little while. Here's a hint, it involves chocolate and Jesus. Special guest, will you introduce yourself?
I'm Cosimo Cavallaro, and I'm present for this.
I like that. Do you want to tell anyone anything about yourself, or you want them to sort of like let who you are unfold as we talk?
Yes, let's start unfolding what's here.
Okay. I was kind of hoping that you would tell people a little bit about some of the art that you're up to, because if people are listening or watching, what they might not know is that I'm guessing the room you're in smells like chocolate.
Very much, very much. A lot of chocolate, 90 pounds of chocolate. So this is the studio that we're working out of, and it's Andrew Clement, and that's the mold back there of Jesus of rain, and this is we have everything here that we need to get this sculpture done. So from the molding, silicone mold, to the cast in chocolate. And then on the day, in this booth here, which you can't see, we're going to have 7 cameras installed around the figure. Then the heat gets brought up in the room, and for 3 hours, you're going to watch it melt. So you're seeing a dissolution of ourself. What remains is whatever. But I think that 3 hours of meditation with this music of the bolero, it will bring some reflection and some excitement, because things are going to happen all over the body. As you can't predict what's going to melt first, and the hand falls, and so you're going to be able to go from camera to camera and see and rewind and watch again. So I find it to be entertaining. At the same time, something is happening in your mind where your criticisms are hopefully dissolving, your judgments, and maybe the loss of something opens your heart. That's the whole thing here for me. As an artist, is to experience all of your identity be dissolved. So as an artist, you're also, you're portraying yourself through your work, and you want it to last. So you make it out of bronze or some solid material. Whereas here, making it out of chocolate, to me, what lasts is your experience is greater than what you're seeing and touching. So I went a step further. Normally, the reason why I went into food as a medium, because it's a perishable, but here to see it completely dissolve, I think it's emblematic of the word of Jesus. He became more embedded in our society, in our consciousness, because he died, and because the passion of the Christ, where he resurrects. He resurrects in our soul, in our spirit. What was done to him was an injustice, and what's done to a lot of people is an injustice. We live in an unjust world, and people take advantage of this. It's wrong. It's just wrong, and we don't have to. But we just decided this is the way we build success, and we build freedom at the expense of someone else's life. So I hope that this is a work that people can experience and open their heart.
I mean, I really love that you use chocolates. You also use cheeses sometimes too. Is that true?
Yeah. I used cheese. I used ham. I used ketchup. I used things that brought me back to a point in time in my life. And cheese was because it's who I was as a child, growing up in an Italian family, and my grandfather coming from Italy, and everybody huddled around the table, and the suitcase gets unpacked, and they unravel the clothes, and then in the center was this piece of cheese that everybody really went for that. It seemed like the Holy Grail. And I just wanted to be a part of that, but I was too young, and they said, no, you can't touch this, you can't eat it. It was a particular cheese that they have in Sardinia, which has little maggots in it. And they cut it open, and then they eat this. It's a delicacy. And I just thought, I have to try that. But when I went to school, my clothes smelled of the cheese, and everybody would smell me. And I thought, it's interesting. I'm not ashamed of it. It's who I am. And one day I decided to cover my sofa with cheese. And it was a way for me to say, this is who I am. And stepping out, I then covered a hotel room. And I thought I lost my mind. But I felt much better having done it than not. So if I said, well, if this is losing my mind, I'm okay with this. And the journey began, where I just kept going, not knowing where I was going to go, but I knew I was going to come out the other end, which I did a chocolate Jesus in the past, and it was canceled. And this is part of that piece, which is the resurrection. It's what happens is the passion of the Christ. And so I said, I had an interview with somebody, and they said, well, what's going to happen with the chocolate Jesus? I said, no, I'm done with that. And as I said that, I said, Jesus, it's not done. Like I'm just, I walked away because it was very, very disturbing. The model who I used was my friend of mine who died. I had a lot of death threats, and it was, it just was very unpleasant. I couldn't believe that they couldn't see the beauty in the piece. And so I realized I'm not, it's not that I'm not done. It's not done with me. And there, all of a sudden, things lined up that as much as I want something to happen, it's not going to happen. But when it's supposed to happen, all the things line up. And here I am. And someone says, well, why did you choose a trans Jesus? It felt that that's what it had to be. I just, that's what it had to be for me. And part of it was that I had to learn something from that. And what I learned was I couldn't see it till it was in front of me. And not as a human being, but as a sculpture. And the minute I laid eyes on it, I said, my God, I've never seen anything more beautiful. And it made sense. If the human being makes sense this way, and it's what doesn't make sense is that you think you're one and not the other. You can't be one without the other. It's impossible. You're both, and this is who we are. We are the ultimate experience of human. And it made more sense after than before. But I just can't get over how beautiful the sculpture is. I mean, I've never seen anything more beautiful. The most beautiful rendition of Christ. And part of my journey has been, what do you know and how do you know when you're looking at something beautiful? Well, you can't imagine beauty. Beauty just appears. It takes you by surprise. Because anything you can imagine is not beautiful. It's expected. You're already thought of it. Unexpected is beauty. And I think, and the authenticity is beauty. And rain just is an abundance of authenticity. So, and I mean, you should really interview her because she's really amazing. She's the artwork. I just love the fact that there's a human that can speak for the sculpture, which is her. I think it's fantastic. I can't believe how blessed I am to be in this experience myself. it's my ultimate goal is to not see myself in the work, that the artist disappears. I can't stand it when I can see myself in the work. And then this one is just, I don't want to make another piece after this one. That's how perfect that is for me. So I want to go back to after Chocolate Jesus. I was asked to do another show with Chocolate Jesus, and I said, no, I don't want to. And they said, well, what do you want to do? I said, well, I want to cover a classroom in Ketchup. And the reason why is because the last time I was in art school, I had judged 2 kids, okay, that they were having more fun than I was. And they were playing with ketchup. And I was miserable. I just thought, how dare you fucking play with this ketchup, huh? And while I'm here struggling, trying to, paint like Caravaggio, and but they were having a blast. And they happened to be 2 gay kids, right? And I thought, I felt so bad that I judged them, that I shouldn't have judged them. And it haunted me. And here was a moment to go back in that moment. So I said, well, if you get me a school and 500 pounds of ketchup, I will come and do ketchup, but I will not bring Jesus. And they said, fine. And a guy walks in 5 minutes after and donates a building to them, to this art center, okay? And they call me back and says, listen, we can't get a school, but we have an apartment in a building. Do you want it? I said, I'll take it. I'm coming. So that was an incredible meeting for me, because that's where I met God. And so there's 7 days before the opening. There's 12 artists from all over the world. They're putting up banners all over the city. And I'm applying ketchup to this 1-bedroom apartment, and nothing is sticking. It's just coming down the walls. And I do the second day, and it's coming down the walls. And I do the third day, and it's just dripping right to the edges. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I've come to this mega failure. Like, how am I going to explain to people it's not going to work? So by the 4th day, I realized, okay, I have to use squirt bottles, ketchup bottles, and just squirt this whole thing on. So as I do that, my assistant is just filling up the bottles, and I'm going at it, and I'm so depressed. And a friend of mine from the past comes to take some pictures, and he's on the other side of the hallway, and it looks like a river between us. He's looking at me like, uh-oh, he flipped his mind. He's on the other side. I'll never get back. And I went, Jesus Christ, I'm alone. And no one can help me. And then I was so tired, I just collapsed, and I hear a voice, and it says, I can't work through you if you get in the way. And I said, well, tell me what I have to do. And it said, get out of the way. Wow. But I knew exactly, stop judging. Stop judging what this is. Stop judging what you think. Just get all this out of the way, and just understand that you're at service. Or you're going to do this all over again, and you're going to come back to the same place. So either you jump now or you don't. And then in my mind, I said, if I jump, I die. But if you don't die, you're going to continue living your whole past all over again. So I said, I'm going to jump. And I jumped, and I just worked diligently just till the morning. I collapsed, and I felt I was sleeping in someone's hand, exposed to the universe, and I had zero fear. And I've never had a more comfortable sleep in my life. And I wake up, and I hear this voice that says, I was here. Oh, wow. I go, don't tell me that's the title. I went into this giving them the title, which was Exit. And the curator says, well, you know what? Why don't you wait till you're done, and then I'll come back for the title. She actually knew it was a bad title. So that afternoon, she's walking by and she says, Cosmo, we have to go to press on the book. Do you have the title? I said, and I didn't want to say it because I thought it was pompous. And I feel this nudge in my back. Like, who are you? I told you to stay, get out of the way. And then all of a sudden I said, I was here, and she ran with it. And I felt so relieved, so good, because slowly, I'm being pulled out of the work and more at service. And so then I did another piece after that, which was the cheese wall. And that was, man, stand up for your rights. This is like, you're not here on a vacation. You're going to do something. Don't think this is you have to stand up for your rights, meaning not your rights, but as a human right. You're standing up for human rights. And I didn't know the meaning of that piece. What did that wall mean, But I knew I had to do it. I'm like pulled to do something. There's nothing else that matters to me. And I'll put everything in it. That became a major lawsuit because they destroyed the wall, and they just plowed into it. And then we went into this litigation with this the contractors. But that was a moment of fear for me, to stand up for yourself. There's such an injustice in the world. It could be so corrupt. People could be bought. But somehow, somewhere, God intervenes. And he shows up at the right moment and does what's right. Because humanity has this built in them. We cannot get rid of humanity as much as we want. As much as evil wants to control humanity, there's something built in that it will not let it happen. So that piece brought me to understanding what is a foundation, what holds up a wall, stronger than mortar, stronger than a bedrock, is trust. Trust is not something that you have degrees of trust. It's either it's 100% or nothing. So there's nothing like that. So that I understood was a major part of my life, understanding that. And then now with rain, what stands on top of trust? Courage. You build with courage, right? You start with trust, and then you build with courage. And life has to be built with courage. And it's not about what we see. It's about what we feel. And I think that we have multiple dimensions that we only teach ourselves 5, 6 dimensions at most, but we're much more than that. And love is that key that opens that door, because what stops you from love is fear, right? So once you get to love, everything is there. Everything starts to show itself. Even when you start to speak to someone, you're speaking, but you're in touch with the other person's wavelengths of the way they're thinking, and all of a sudden you're saying to yourself, am I actually speaking, or am I hearing what that other person is saying, but it's my voice, and it goes back and forth this way. And yes, like all humans, we have residue of our past that creeps up, and that's there to show you that there's still some cleaning to do. So
well, I really appreciate that you're using modalities that are kind of like highlighting our fragility, right? That are, I think there's a even more fun use of chocolate in Jesus art, with people who try to refrain from chocolate in Lent, or like try to deny the sweetness of God and only want to tell other people to suffer for their faith. Like there is a beauty to kind of echoing those words of kind of a creating God who's like, it's supposed to be good, you guys. Like it's supposed to be sweet, and it's not supposed to be forever. And so I love those resonances.
Megan, you're so absolutely right. I wasn't aware of these things. You know, the first time I did chocolate, it made sense to me because if I want to look at something and feel something in like taste that person, I wanted to be sweet, right? So that's why I did the first chocolate chips. But this one is not only it's a much more profound piece because Rain, when she came in and laid down on the table, I said, just lay there comfortably. You know, there's no suffering. And she just laid there, and it was just so beautiful. I went, oh my God, this idea of sacrifice and suffering, what is that? You know, this is the ultimate. You can't kill me. I live forever if you try to kill me. You know, this is Jesus. I mean, the message is stronger. Had they not killed him, there'd be no message, right? So it was the injustice that was done to kill somebody for believing, for healing, for not asking money. You know, like, what are you, like, how can you say this is something that we have to punish, and that kind of punishment, you know? So I think that we're at a world. Yes, the piece is there's some lightheartedness to it. You know, there's some whimsicalness to it. The music. I mean, that's why I gave it the Passion of the Crust instead of the Passion of the Christ. You know, but I think that at the same time, there's a digestion that's happening. That you're able to take the sweetness and the bitterness, and then slowly, you know, becomes one. And you are allowed to be everything. You can't just, if you can't go around hopping along for the rest of your life. You have to, you know, one foot leads the next, right? And as a society, I think the whole trans society is phenomenal. I believe, and I truly believe, that the world one day will become all trans because it makes sense. It just doesn't. And if you look at history, we've been going back and forth playing this game. Like, who needs to play the game? This is real. This is normal. I was telling a friend, I said, you know, just imagine you play a role as an actor, and you win an Academy Award, right? Everybody loves you. But every time you go into a restaurant, they think you're that actor that played that role, and you can never. If you took off your costume, you know you're now 30 years older, and they still want to see you as that person, and you're saying, no, I'm not that person. And I was telling this friend, I said, you know, it's a bit what a trans lives like. Like, hey, wait a minute. You guys are telling me, because I was born, that this is who I am, but nobody ever asked me, right? So now I'm saying the truth is, this is who I really am, and they don't want to see who you really are. What a fucked up society is like. So I remember saying to psychiatrists at a dinner, I said, you can't change who you are, but you can change who you're not. And I think who you are, we don't know because we're put on, you know, into this on a stage, and you say, this is who you're going to be, you know, and you're only going to be that person because everybody loves that person, right? You have to be accepted by everybody. But there comes a day where you say, well, I have to really, before this experience is over, I have to accept who I am. And then that's the authentic self, you know. And there's nothing more beautiful than living that. There is nothing more than that. And as long as we, you know, people chase objects and think that that's going to fulfill their life, it's just not. You know, what's going to fulfill your life is to accept who you are and live that life. Live who you are.
Well, I hear in your story, as you're talking about sort of your art and your journey, both that you have like navigated the heart of the world, but also the like difficulty of sitting with yourself and your own wonderings of what you could have done better. But I hear in there a little bit something I deeply resonate with is like I call it the like itch from God on the inside. And it's once God's told you what you need to do, it's gonna itch until you just do it. And hopefully you get in a place where you just, once you figure it out, you just do it right away, because who would want to like live with that ache and that hard part? So I'm just so appreciative that you have the guts that it takes to like do things that other people in the world might classify as off your rocker, so that like God can dwell in this place. And so it's such an impressive thing to do, especially in times where there is so much hard in the world, to kind of keep trying to focus back on kind of things that are bringing restoration and hope and healing. And so I'm really grateful that you listen to that and sit with that.
Well, thank you for saying that. You know, it's funny because as a kid growing up in an immigrant Italian family, I was not allowed to do what I do. Meaning it was shameful. It was you're going to be a homeless bum. You know, why don't you go do what your cousins are doing? And so, but I couldn't be anybody else. You know, and I kept thinking like, wow, how is it that who I am is so painful for these people? You know, how terrible. So I connect to that feeling. Like when I saw this incredible documentary where this autistic kid, the family, the mother and father did not know what to do, and the child just didn't want to live. He was trying to kill himself, you know. And then they went to find some shaman, and it got to this point where the backstory comes out is the mother was afraid to have the child because her autism ran in her family. The husband said, I want to have a son because in my family, we're proud if we have a son, and all I want him to do is ride a horse. You know, he comes from some tradition of, I think in New Zealand somewhere. And so they had this child, but they felt, it was an amazing feeling. The child hated to be alive because of who he was, because he had disappointed them. And he didn't want them to feel disappointed, but he didn't know how to express it to them. Finally, they bring him to the shaman, and the shaman understands everything, and he takes the switch and comes to the mother and father and starts beating them. And this child is happy. He's laughing. The kid finally goes to the bathroom on his own. He starts to live like independent. The parents are crying. They don't understand what's going on. And he realized that child was so bright. It took somebody to tell my parents, stop. You know, stop what you're doing. Stop feeling that you're guilty of having this child. He wants you to be happy that you had this child. You know, and then all of a sudden, from tears, there's joy, because the child, they know he could survive on his own. But he was always trying to tell them, I can, but if you don't believe I can, then why would I live? You know? Anyway, what a story. But as a kid growing up in an Italian family where, you know, you had to work because you can't go to school and you know, do art. What are you going to do with that? So they were really worried that I couldn't succeed. So I went and became a commercial. I worked in films as an art director, and then became a director in commercials. And you know, you make a great, beautiful, comfortable, a lot of money life, but it's all like, it doesn't mean anything. You know, it's just like, you know, it doesn't. It's like window dressing. It's like, or better, I used to say, it's like having sex with a binocular. You know, you think you're having, but you're way, way far away from it, you know? So, but then having the courage to stop and realize this life is not going to get me much further other than I'm going to kill myself, you know? So going back into my art was, at that moment for me, saving my life. And I made a commitment and to never give up on the gift that was given to me, which is that God speaks to me there. That's the only place I can hear God. So you definitely you tapped into that for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm glad for that, for the resurrection that comes through like trying to live your full poetic and artistic life. I tried to be an art major and I did a lot of wire sculpture, and then I got tricked into becoming a pastor. So maybe I'll get to come fully back into myself in that way too. Before I let you go, though, I wanted to make sure that people could connect with you. If people want to see more of your art, if they want to tune in to watch the
Yes,
whatever
please.
happens as the chocolate unravels,
Please,
what
thank
should
you.
they do?
Yes, love for people to experience this piece. They can go to Chocolate Jesus Melts, and there they can purchase a ticket for $9.99. And because I didn't want this show to be only for viewing of a gallery, and I didn't want it to be shut down by anybody, I decided to go and do a pay-per-view and on a white label. And so this way people can actually see it, and not only see it from one point of view, but from multiple point of views, which is the ultimate. Somebody could, as a viewer myself, I can't see all of those things happening at one time. So this is giving someone the experience that normally you couldn't have, even being there, because you might see one thing, but by the time you look over there, it's already happened, So that, and then Cosimo Cavallaro is my name, and .com is where you can see all the other stuff. And in a way, I'm going to say something bizarre. This is supporting yourself by doing this, really, because it I hope it just touches your heart. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this conversation. If you are interested in more conversations like these, please like and subscribe and find more episodes of And All Shall Be Well wherever it is that you like to download or listen to podcasts. You also can connect with me online at MMROHRER and find little bits of wellness and kindness throughout your week. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you next time.